Hello, I'm Prairie Parnell. I'm reading today from A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine. The story of A Wrinkle in Time is about Meg Murray, an average high school student who's just doing her thing until her father goes missing while working on a space project called a Tesseract. Meg gets swept up in an interdimensional search across time and space in order to find her father. She encounters many trials as she travels, including the loss of her baby brother, Charles Wallace, to the demented and demanding unifying brain creature called It. In this excerpt from the book, Meg learns the true value of the ties that bind us all together. And we are swept along for the ride as Meg proves how strong love can be. It was as though the wind had been knocked out of her. She gasped for breath in her own rhythm, not the permeating, pulsing rhythm of It. She could feel the inexorable beat within her own body, controlling her heart, her lungs. But not herself, not Meg. It did not quite have her. She blinked her eyes rapidly and against the rhythm until the redness before them cleared and she could see. There was the brain. There was It, lying, pulsing, quivering on the dais, soft and exposed and nauseating. Charles Wallace was crouched beside It, his eyes still slowly twirling, his jaw still slack as she had seen him before, with a tick in his forehead reiterating the revolting rhythm of It. As she saw him, it was again as though she had been punched in the stomach, for she had to realize afresh that she was seeing Charles, and yet it was not Charles at all. Where was Charles Wallace, her own beloved Charles Wallace? What is it that I have got that It hasn't got? You've got nothing that It hasn't got, Charles Wallace said coldly. How nice to have you back, dear sister. We've been waiting for you. We knew that Miss Whatsit would send you. She is our friend, you know. For an appalling moment, Meg believed, and in that moment she felt her brain being gathered up into It. No, she screamed at the top of her lungs. No, you lie. For a moment she was free from It's clutches again. As long as I stay angry, it can't get me. Is that what I have that It doesn't have? Nonsense, Charles Wallace said. You have nothing that It doesn't have. You're lying, she said, and she felt only anger towards the boy who was not Charles Wallace at all. No, it was not anger, it was loathing. It was hatred, sheer and unadulterated. And as she became lost in hatred, she also became lost in It. The red miasma swam before her eyes. Her stomach churned in It's rhythm. Her body trembled with the strength of her hatred and the strength of It. With the last vestiges of consciousness, she jerked her mind and body. Hate was nothing that It didn't have. It knew all about hate. You're lying about that. You're lying about Miss Whatsit, she screamed. Miss Whatsit hates you, Charles Wallace said. And that was where it made its fatal mistake. For as Meg said automatically, Miss Whatsit loved me. That's what she told me, that she loves me. Suddenly she knew. She knew. Love. That's what she had that It didn't have. She had Miss Whatsit's love, and her father's, and her mother's, and the real Charles Wallace's love, and the twins and Aunt Beast's, and she had her love for them. But how could she use it? What was she meant to do? If she could give love to It, perhaps it would shrivel up and die, for she was sure that It could not withstand love. But she, in all her weakness and foolishness and baseness and nothingness, was incapable of loving It. Perhaps it was not too much to ask of her, but she could not do it. But she could love Charles Wallace. She could stand there and she could love Charles Wallace, her own Charles Wallace, the real Charles Wallace, the child for whom she had come back to Kamadzats to It, the baby who was so much more than what she was, and who was yet so utterly vulnerable. She could love Charles Wallace. Charles, I love you, my baby brother who has always taken care of me. Come back to me, Charles Wallace. Come away from It. Come home. Come home, I love you. I love you, Charles. Oh, Charles Wallace, I love you. Tears were streaming down her cheeks, but she was unaware of them. Now she was even able to look at him, at this animated thing that was not her own Charles Wallace at all. She was able to look and love. I love you, Charles Wallace. You are my darling and my dear and the light of my life and the treasure of my heart. I love you. I love you. I love you. Slowly his mouth closed. Slowly his eyes stopped their twirling. The tick in his forehead ceased its revolting twitch. Slowly he advanced towards her. I love you, she cried. I love you, Charles. I love you. Then suddenly he was running, pelting. He was in her arms. He was shrieking with sobs. Meg, Meg, Meg. I love you, Charles, she cried again, her sobs almost as loud as his, her tears mingling with his. I love you, I love you, I love you. A whirl of darkness, an icy cold blast, an angry, resentful howl that seemed to tear through her. Darkness again. Through the darkness to save her came a sense of Miss Whatsit's presence, so she knew it could not be it who now had her in her clutches. And then the feel of the earth beneath her, of something in her arms, and she was rolling over on the sweet-smelling autumnal earth, and Charles Wallace was crying, Meg, oh Meg, Meg, you saved me. You saved me.